Ah, 'tis a brilliantly built abode, somewhere near Fuchsia, half past the sunny side of the soul, that rains and then rainbows, all souls maturing back into youth, swamp girls a-swimming, Guajardians abiding, future San Bernardinians rainbowing bright, yea, I live there, you live there, we all live there together, provided we are friends via Facebook, MySpace, or Twitter. I want to hear an amen, brother. Fredo, how are you doing? This is Vandal Drummond.
I'm doing great. You know, I'm doing even better now that Blog Talk Radio seems to have upgraded their switchboard. You don't need glasses now. You can actually see everything now. Like, there's actually, like, more, it's bolder or something. I don't know. They changed the color scheme.
Interesting. Was it almost like you're trying to read small print or something when you're trying to accomplish things?
Like, just to get their phone number to call in. Because you don't remember all that crap, like the PIN numbers and all this stuff, and it's like, it was so tiny, you just, like, what is that again? 7?
Yes. Blog Talk has been micromanaging for way too long. Now they're getting into the macro era.
Well, yeah, I mean, now they're doing all that premium stuff, the premium service. They must be making some money now.
I hope so, because this is a pretty bitchin' service we got going here.
Yeah.
Very cool opening track that you played.
Primitive.
What's that?
It's called Primitive.
Primitive.
Yep, which is perfect for our show.
This is because we're going over some primitive issues, namely the Win promotion, which we will be getting into, and then primitive beings like Vandal Drummond and Steve Dr. Lucha Sims.
And Kurt, did you hear the news from this week? The big news?
I did not. I have been off the radar in a big way.
I didn't want to bring it up to you before the show because I thought your reaction would have been a little bit better if I told you.
You want to hear the shock factor.
Yeah, the shock factor. That's what we're all about, shock.
Yes.
Well, this week, the two big stories was with AAA. Octagon was, I guess he was ticketed for DUI.
Oh dear.
That's the worst one of the two.
That's the worst part because he's already had a checkered past as far as running into, drug problems.
Yeah, and drunk driving too.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the bad one, and the stranger one is there was an article in Mexico that was reporting there was like a profile on Adult Friend Finder for Cibernetico.
I'm already scared.
And on there, you know how that you put your picture on your profile or whatever. I don't have access to that website or anything, but there's a picture of him, in his birthday suit. So that's not as bad as I expected. I was scared it was gonna be Adult Friend Finder, but he was looking for friends who were not adults. That was my biggest fear. Wait, I didn't get to that part. I didn't get to that part. I just wanted to see the other part was that he was looking for friends. He was fine with either men or women. He's
a very open-minded guy.
So this happened, I think, on Wednesday, and today Octagon gave his side of the story, which he said it was with two friends. He had 2 drinks, and then he decided to drive, which I mean it's like such a bullshit story. The whole
right.
Thing. And then Cibernetico said that the picture he took with his camera phone, but he doesn't know how it got onto that website because he didn't. He says he doesn't even know how to use the internet, and like. Oh
dear! Talk about primitive.
Yeah, that was.
What is he trying to compete with John McCain now? I don't know these things people refer to as personal computers.
He was trying to say like I'm never on there. I'm never online. I don't know how to use it. But that picture apparently he sent it to his current wife.
Now I wonder if she's the one who posted it, or if there's some.
No, it's his wife, but. It might have been, come on, a wrestler's going to send it to more than one person.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Wrestlers have wives, they have significant others, they have, liaisons.
We haven't seen Estrellita in a while, so. Could have been her. Okay, so if any of you out there want to have some fun surfing the web tonight, do Google images of Cibernetico, and in parentheses, adult friend finder. Who knows? Maybe he would like to be your friend.
Maybe I was kind of hoping that he would have said something about the he'll play both sides of the field. I was hoping he would say that not that there's anything wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So the old Seinfeld quote.
Yeah,
he can be a Rudo and a Technico, and we all get to decide which side is Rudo and which one is Technico.
That one never gets old.
Yep, it doesn't. Yeah, never gets old. It's even funnier when it involves professional wrestling, I must say.
Okay, so the other story is CMLL's attendance continues to drop.
I did hear about this one. This is like an all-time low, isn't it?
Yeah, I think. Well, apparently, Cubs fan was saying he had 420. He had heard 425, and he was corrected by Dr. Lucha saying it was 475.
So an extra 50 paying, maybe. Maybe they're just trying to accomplish the ultimate empty arena match.
Yeah, it's. I think it's just that they're running in the same place so many times, and everything's on television. It's kind of like people are probably thinking, why the hell am I going to go when I could just sit home and wait for it to be on TV for free?
No motivation, definitely. I can dig that.
Isn't it funny? Like a couple of years ago, you used to hear all these Lucha Libre promoters talk about why they wouldn't put anything on tape, why they wouldn't put it on TV, and now all of a sudden everything's on TV.
Yes, and in fact, I remember 20-something years ago, that was like the cardinal rule, no TV.
Yeah.
I mean, even though TV aired here, and I'm certain it must have aired some places in Mexico, there were a lot of places that just didn't want the wrestling on TV. Not so much the TV stations or the public, but the promoters, which I can dig. It can be overkill. Well, this CMLL is entering an interesting era, trying to put a positive spin on it, but what can you do?
Well, they have to get rid of whoever came up with the discount tickets.
I know they seem to be doing more harm than good. Maybe they should try doubling tickets prices and see if it has some odd effect on the general public.
Well, the thing is, if you go to a sporting event, when have you ever heard them give you they'll give you a discount, but usually it just seems like they usually raise the prices. Every single time they end up raising the prices a little more.
Sporting events in general?
Yeah, and then same thing
in a scary way.
Yeah, but people go.
It's true. It blows my mind. I remember going to Dodger and Angel games frequently when I was a teen, even as a young adult in the 80s, and you were able to get cheap seats.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
it's
amazing how much it costs now just to enjoy these things that were formerly something that, blue-collar family can, take the whole family to.
It always seems that that's the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be the other way around, where people are gonna, they're gonna see that it's expensive and they're gonna want to go because it's the thing to do. But
Speaking of baseball, who is this guy Lincecum?
Lincecum?
Yeah, Lincecum. He just got busted for sparking the owl.
What's that? I've never heard
I was just on Twitter, and they said a baseball player, some guy named Lincecum, just got busted for weed.
Oh, God, that's it?
Yeah, and I'm refreshed by how many of the people on Twitter are not shocked or outraged. It's very refreshing, It's like I said so many times before, there's prescription meds and methamphetamines that are killing people right and left. And people still get enraged by the evil weed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just... When did this happen? Today? Just right now, huh?
Yeah, it must have happened recently. I
didn't hear about it.
I know so little about baseball. I know a couple of main names like A-Rod and that sort of...
I couldn't imagine that considering you call him Lincecum.
Yeah, I did. I was a little shocked myself.
You were like, who the fuck would call their kid Lincecum?
Yeah, that's a very odd name to dawn upon a kid. It's like you're trying to chart out his history from day one.
His last name's Lincecum. Tim.
Yeah, like a person who would name their kid Paige Turner or something like that.
He's pretty good, though.
Yeah?
Oh, well, let's get past the whole baseball thing now. And
that sounds good. Let's get to the meat.
About Win. How did it
Let's
get
talk
started?
about Win.
Sure. How did it get started?
Win started in 1989.
Uh-huh.
I first heard about it because they were doing TV tapings at the San Bernardino Arena in San Bernardino, California, which was probably one of the oldest wrestling arenas in Southern California. A really great arena to see wrestling in because it seated maybe 1,500 people, and it was built specifically for wrestling and boxing. I mean, the seats were built into the arena. They were built into the floor, and it was a small kind of arena-type setting, and the ring for many years was actually built into the building. It was actually part of the building.
Wow. They
weren't always taking it down and everything. It was like a classic wrestling arena. And Physico, Steve Gerber, Pat Howitt, and myself all heard that there was going to be Lucha Libre TV tapings. You know, typical wrestling promoter, you got no other info than that. We heard no advertisements, actually. It was just word of mouth. I think I heard it through Billy Anderson because he was working both as Billy Anderson and as the mercenary for the promotion.
Mm-hmm.
So away we went to the San Bernardino Arena, and we go up, and it says Win Promotions. In fact, I was about to ask you, I thought of it for so many years as Win, and I was told what Win stands for, but it's totally escaped my mind. I haven't even thought of it in years. Do you remember?
The Wrestling International Network?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the reason I remember is because I remember, I think there was a show where they actually called it that towards the end.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because Armando Quintero was the announcer, and I remember him saying it, because he was like bilingual too, so I kind of remember, because wasn't Armando Quintero like a big host over here in L.A.?
To be honest, I have no recollection.
You don't?
The only recollection I have is that somebody narrated it in Spanish.
Yeah, Armando Quintero.
I do know he was bilingual because I remember him doing some interviews with the Americans in English.
Yeah. But the reason, because I remember, I think I remember him being on some of the news shows and those morning shows here in
Yes, like the morning talk shows or / news shows.
Because he had that radio voice and TV voice of the 80s for Spanish television.
Ah.
That's why I remember.
Well, I think it was the day we were heading there, we were a little surprised to find out that the promoter was, famed American wrestler Red Bastien.
Mm-hmm.
And we know he had some involvement in bringing some of the wrestlers to Tijuana, that sort of thing. But we were a little surprised that he was starting up a lucha promotion. And we were wondering why there wasn't much publicity for the show. And we heard through one of the wrestlers that he was working with WWF at the time. Whenever they would come into the Southern California territory, he was kind of like the regional road agent or, some title like that.
Uh-huh.
And he was worried about them finding out that he was working with somebody else. But working with somebody else, he was actually running his own promotion.
Yeah.
Which was kind of silly because word was going to get out anyways. Of course, this was the early days of the news sheets like the Wrestling Observer, so maybe he thought word would travel a little more slowly if he didn't give it much publicity. And the other story I heard in connection with that was he was not actually the one putting up the money for it. There was a money mark there. And so there's a lot of speculation to this day. Was Red Bastien really trying to make a go of the promotion, or was he, saying, hey, here's a quick payday, here's a good money mark, and me, some of the boys and I can make some money off this guy, run some shows until it runs its course.
Did you ever find out who the money mark was?
No. I never even heard it mentioned. In fact, back at that time, I can't remember when I found out there was a money mark, but I remember I didn't even think that much about it. I guess I was kind of naive thinking that anybody who promotes wrestling, is, going all out to make it a success. Where, and later I learned the money mark comes in. You just try to get as much money as you can out of him, and then, let the ATM machine run until it's dry.
I should cross out my next question. What was he planning on doing with Win? I was like, okay, I might as well mark that out. I mean, so basically,
that's the very $1 million. Yeah, exactly. That's just
because you could kind of tell because the show. Because I remember this was in '89, and when I was living in El Paso at the time, and when you would watch what they were doing, and Juarez, and then the show from Mexico City, you could just tell the difference between the three shows. I mean, there was just like a big difference between who was running it and how it was being done. I always thought Win was more of a Americanized show. Where
it was very Americanized, and actually, I think when Red put the show together, I don't think he was trying to make a crap show or anything like that. I don't think he was going through the motions, but yeah, he was doing an Americanized version of a Lucha Libre show, and that was around the first time I ever met Red Bastien, and he is actually quite friendly to me, especially since at the time I was putting out a sheet called Viva La Lucha.
Uh-huh.
And, a lot of those old-timers were really kind of guarded around anybody who wrote any kind of a sheet, and maybe the fact that I didn't write a lot of kayfabe stuff in it, or non-kayfabe.
Did you tell me you had thousands of readers?
I think maybe I had a dozen or 24 at the time. No, but he was actually pretty cool and would talk to me about stuff. But even back then, I'll never forget when they had the big, TV production truck parked outside the San Bernardino Arena, and it looked like a really professional job. And then Bastien is telling me, the man producing this show is top notch. And I'm going, oh, really? That's great. And he says, yeah, he's the same guy who produced Roy Shire's TV tapings in the 70s. And the very first thing I thought of was those Roy Shire tapings in the 1970s. The wrestling on it was really good, but the comical aspect was that it was a TV studio, and you'd see a couple of rows of fans sitting there, kind of sort of getting into it, but there would be dubbed audience cheering, where you hear this rabid audience, cheering the good guys, booing the bad guys, and all the fans looking just kind of half animated. It was like so comical, and the first thing I thought of is, oh, wonder if we're going to get a dubbed audience, dubbed audio. Sure enough, you watch those tapes.
Yeah. I mean,
you get dubbed audience.
The only thing I kind of really dug was the announcers. That's really what I thought that was really where he was going to do. I mean, Quintero wasn't that great, but I thought if you're going to get somebody who could be bilingual, I mean.
That's where I kick myself in the ass for not really working harder at learning Spanish when I was young, because that was a part I can only appreciate so much.
Yeah, I mean, because it's so you obviously didn't know who Armando Quintero was.
No, I didn't. I had no clue.
Gee, Kurt, I guess now I'll scratch this off. But I guess the two guest announcers most often used were Ari Romero and Black Gordman, weren't they?
And Goliath.
Oh, Goliath too, right?
Yeah, Goliath was used as a color commentator.
Well, actually, he might have been the one that was used most often, wasn't he? Because he didn't wrestle, did he?
No, he didn't wrestle. He occasionally wrestled an indie show, but he did not work the Win tapings at all. He kind of, he was kind of like the mentor to Bobby Bradley at the time.
Yeah.
And so, as I recall, a lot of his involvement there was for Bobby Bradley's benefit.
What did you think of Bobby Bradley at the time?
Oh, he was very talented. Bobby Bradley had a really good future. Unfortunately, a lot of people got it into his head that, how do I put this? That achieving fame is just a matter of not doing jobs and, getting the wrestling magazines and people around you to say you're a great wrestler, and the audience will believe it in droves.
Uh-huh.
And as silly as that sounds now, there were a lot of, people when they're getting into the wrestling business that did think it was that easy, that if you told the audience this guy is extremely talented and that he's a star, that you'll become one, that it's just a matter of telling people you're good and you'll become good. A lot of people actually believe that, more so than they do now.
And Bobby kind of fell into that.
Yeah, he fell into it, and and the reason I sound sympathetic is it's no fault of his own. There were several people who kind of put that in his ear who should have known better.
Well, I've noticed it happens to like the younger guys, and they're not. It doesn't mean they're like bad guys at all. But
exactly, Bobby was a really nice kid and a very, very talented kid too. But yeah, one of the things people told him, which in the 90s for some reason they would tell a lot of guys getting into the business, don't do jobs, it will kill your career, do not do jobs.
Yeah.
And so Bobby would try to do that bartering with some people. He eventually learned, but it did kind of, I think, slow down his career a bit at the time.
Also,
but yeah, he's a really nice guy, and I remember seeing several matches. I think it was the first time I actually saw him in action. No. Earlier that year, I saw him on the TJ show in a 6-man, and I remember just thinking, "Damn, this kid's great." And it was great how he could, work an American and a Mexican style.
He kind of like disappeared after really quickly, didn't he? Because
yeah, unfortunately, he got a lot of injuries early on. And then there's also just the whole thing about success, part of it being luck and timing.
Yeah.
He came close to getting some breaks, but it just never quite panned out.
Wasn't he in Herb Abrams' UWF too?
He might have been. I don't recall.
Yeah.
I remember he did a tour for Baba, I want to say in the mid-'90s. I'm trying to remember if it was when he was briefly teaming with Rob Van Dam, too.
Yeah, I don't think he went with Rob Van Dam, did he?
Probably not, but I remember he was teaming with him around the time, so I don't know if that was
I remember
part of...
Because weren't they like Aerial Assault or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to see their names listed all the time.
Yeah, but yeah, Bobby was really good, and I haven't seen him in a long... Last time I think I saw him was at a TV taping that both Bobby and I were both on about over 10 years ago. Wow. Yeah, about 11 years ago it was. In the Simi Valley, we were both on a TV taping that was, never aired.
Was Win right about the time that you were still retired?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Win started in 89, went somewhere into, I think it went into 1990, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because they only lasted like a year.
What's that?
They only lasted like about a year, right?
Yeah, they came and went. It was amazing how fast it was.
Was there, because I know they ended on TV, in less than a year, but were there still more shows afterwards, or?
There were some house shows.
Uh-huh.
It started to look like it might, be a regular presence, but, yeah, it dissipated almost as fast as it came. And it's a shame because we had a lot of fun at those TV tapings. The TV tapings were one of those deals where they would tape something insane like, 6 hours of short matches, They would knock off a couple of TV tapings. And probably my greatest memory is the first Win show I went to. I met a lot of people that day. I met both Dan and Mary Lou Farron there.
Uh-huh.
That same day I met Johnny Legend. I met Danny Wolf. And I met Greg Galato, who I eventually went on to wrestle a number of times. It was almost, because for a while the tapings were almost a monthly occasion, and it was almost like a little mini wrestling convention. A lot of people would show up there. Who else? The Hanna brothers, who wrestled the indie scene for a while.
Yeah, I remember one of the incredibly strange shows you were telling me about all the, some of the people that were at the show that I remember him from Win. I remember from being a fan. Yeah.
In fact, I remember David and John Hanna. The two things I remember the best is I remember they were fans wanting to become wrestlers, and in between a match, David Hanna ran up and I think took a took a bump in the ring, and Red Bastien just ran out there. Get the hell out of there, kid! And
if he would have done that at a real Lucha show, he wouldn't have been yelled at.
I know exactly. They would have said, like, hey, everybody else join in. Everybody get in the ring.
You would have like 20 kids in there.
Yeah, Johnny Legends would have hired him right away.
So did Win, did Win like start, was there like something still going on in LA when Win started, like a bit like like something like the Olympic or whatever? Or was it just,
nothing regularly? The Olympic scene, when people like Karl Lauer promoted or Benjamin Mora, that was more, if I recall correctly, that was from around 1986 to the last Olympic show was in 1987 because the Olympic closed down for about 7 years.
So then all the, because I mean, like most of these guys were guys who were like just starting, who at one point were like starting out in the Olympic or working at it.
A lot of them were either local Los Angeles boys or local Tijuana boys.
Yeah, or the group that would come from Juarez. They would work from Juarez, TJ, LA, and then back to Texas. Or
because because Win ran some shows in Texas too.
Yeah.
They even did at least one TV taping there.
Well, the weird thing is the Texas shows, I don't think any of the Juarez guys were actually working those shows. Like if you
That's
look
odd.
at it,
they just got brought into the California shows.
No, you have like you had the main Mexican guys who would work Juarez at the time, like Giancarras, Universo Dos Mil, those type of guys. But you didn't have like a lot of the undercard type of guys, which was always kind of weird. Because you had Rudy Boy Gonzalez. I think he might have wrestled Juarez towards the end, but I can't remember.
There were a few guys on the show, the shows in San Bernardino. Don't ask me why this still, sticks in my memory, but I remember there was a jobber named Carlos Vega. Little short, stocky guy who had just a mean-ass face. But, he did a couple of jobs one night, but was a dynamic worker. He was blowing everybody's socks off, and he seemed a little confused later in the night when a bunch of the Gringo fans were walking by and patting him on the shoulder saying, "Damn, you're good." And he was like, "Oh, thank you." And never heard of him again. Never. I'm sorry?
That's one of the weird things about indie wrestling and Lucha Libre.
Yeah, he must have been someplace before because this guy was like, really good worker. He definitely, trained, so he must have just done some regional stuff, but we're wondering, how'd he wind up here for one night and then just, disappeared again?
Interesting to do a search on him.
That would be. I bet you he's not the only Carlos Vega in Lucha Libre.
He's probably like one of 100. You do a Carlos Vega search, it was like 50,000. One of the guys that I kind of remember most that always gets brought up is Mr. Pepto. You remember him?
Oh my God, I haven't thought of him in ages.
Did you ever know who that was?
He was. You're talking about the guy who had the Pepto Bismol bottle.
Yeah. It was like Pepto.
He was just some local boy. I don't think I ever actually met him, but he was one of the local Hadco Plaza guys who just.
And you wrestled as Mr. Pepto all that time?
All that time. If he wrestled under another moniker, I never heard about it. Yeah, I'll never forget seeing the name the first time on a Hadco Plaza show and just thinking, oh, that's a funny name, like Pepto Bismol, and to my shock,
he was Pepto Bismol.
He was Pepto Bismol. For those fans who never saw him, he was a guy with a mask, and the two eye holes were surrounded by the shapes of Pepto Bismol bottles.
Yeah, I always thought that was like the greatest gimmick of all.
It was, Hadco Plaza had some really imaginative gimmicks for its time. They had a guy called Lou El Destripador, which translated Lou the Disemboweler. They had El Jorobado, which was a hunchback.
Did he wrestle as a hunchback?
Yes. He came in a full suit. He was wearing a badly fit suit, and he had a hunchback and a mask. And
topes, too.
What's that?
Could he do two topes?
He never did topes. In fact, every time he lost a fall, he would do the same spot. He'd lose a fall, and then he'd be sitting on the apron of the ring, just kind of looking confused, and then the other wrestler would come and kick him off the apron. Oh, what was another one? Piloto Nuclear, the nuclear pilot. For that time, that was a pretty way out gimmick. Now it's very mild, but
not to get back to that other one, the Hunchback. But how did he lose?
I know, really, it doesn't seem like he could ever submit.
You can't pin a Hunchback.
I know, you'd have to keep rolling him back and forth on his shoulders like a rolling pin to be able to. I assume he must have been submitted. It was 1981, so
wow.
I wonder if I saw photos of him somewhere.
Yeah, you got to get some of those photos up online. And
yeah, I'll have to dig out. I do have one photo, a really good photo from the year-end show at 1981 in Hadco Plaza, where a wrestler called Cosmos juiced the shit out of his forehead.
Wow.
He was one of these guys who kind of had a fetish for juicing. He's a pretty good babyface. He never really got any exposure past the indie level until the early 90s, but by then his body was so thrashed from, all the wild topes he used to do that it was for naught.
Kurt, we got a caller. Let me look him up.
Oh, dear. Who's there?
It's Bixie Demon Jr., the Caucasian adopted son of Bixie Demon, who will later be revealed to not even be adopted.
Oh dear, Bixie Demon has a love child. Bixie Demon Jr. is here. I'm wiping my brow in relief because I thought it was going to be Dr. Lucha with the challenge, with the stipulation match.
You know Dr. Lucha probably won't call now.
I'm wondering if he's afraid of me.
I think he's scared of you.
Yeah, I have a feeling. Because I understand it's the same reason Brock Lesnar is sick.
I wanted to ask you about the Guerreros. They were in Win.
Yes.
Did you ever get to hang around with them or talk to them or anything? How weird are they?
Well, I've heard a lot of Guerrero stories. I'm sure we all have.
You have a good story about one of them from a few years later.
What's that?
You have a good story about one of them from a few years later.
Are we talking about the famous Cauliflower Alley incident?
No, I'm talking about the LA Sports Arena incident with the PayPal.
The Chavo Guerrero one. Well, they're both. I think it's only Chavo Guerrero, pretty much.
Chavo's the one who makes the headlines more than anybody else. I know the LA Sports Arena story with Chavo was. It's funny. I'm talking with Ron Scholar, and Chavo Guerrero just comes up just 3 sheets to the wind, just talking this, that, and the other thing, just, high as a kite. And we're getting along pretty good and stuff like that. And it's back in the dressing room area, and in the LA Sports Arena, they had these huge phone booths that must have been there since the place opened. It was like, these phone booths were so huge that when you went inside of them and closed them, it had room for like 5 Supermans to change into their outfit. So, after talking with Chavo for a while, I go into the phone booth and I'm calling Elena, and I hear this banging on the phone booth, and it kind of makes me start, and I turn around, and there's Chavo Guerrero. He's banging on the phone booth with this shit-faced grin, and his face is pressed against the glass. And I'm like, what the hell? And the first thing I thought of is when I used to watch him on TV when I was young, and Judo Gene LaBelle, would be, doing commentating on his matches, and Gene LaBelle would always say something like, wrestling fans, you can tell your grandchildren that you saw the great Chavo Guerrero wrestle. And so I'm seeing him pressed against the phone booth, and I open up the phone booth and I'm saying, yeah, everything cool? And he says, oh yeah, I just need something from you, man, I need something. I'm going, what's that? And he says, 50 cents.
Oh, God.
And I'm going, 50 cents. And so I reach into my pocket and I give him 50 cents, and he smiles and walks away. And I had this picture in my head of Gene LaBelle saying, you can tell to your grandchildren that you lent Chavo Guerrero 50 cents.
Hey, you lent a legend 50 cents, huh?
Yeah. The story I heard, I wasn't actually at this particular Win taping, but there was one taping that featured Pirata Morgan.
Yeah.
And I guess he was going through a bit of a substance abuse problem, and a friend of mine was supposed to interview him and was using Conan as the connection, and Conan took him aside and said, "I'm sorry, Pirata is high as a kite, and there's no way he's going to be able to get through any kind of an interview." And another wrestler I know who's kind of a larger American guy said he was in the dressing room, and Pirata was just out of it and was looking at him and said something in Spanish, and translated it meant something like, "You might be twice as big as me," or something like that, but I've got a lot of power in me. Kind of warning him, don't try to get smart.
He was trying to start a fight, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. I think he was kind of warning him. Maybe they were supposed to work together or something. He was trying to warn him, don't try shooting on me, because there were times when some, larger guys would, like to shoot on the smaller Mexican. So I guess that was a warning. But anyway, one of the matches that night was Pirata and two other Rudos against the Guerrero brothers. And a friend of mine who was there said that, I think it was Mondo, I can't remember which one, but he thought it would be funny in the middle of the match to play with Pirata's eye patch.
Oh, no.
Said Pirata just started wailing on him and wailed on one of the brothers, and the Guerreros might make some bad decisions, but I've heard they're really tough. There are some really tough cats. So if Morgan held his own with the Guerreros, I don't think I'll ever cross him in this lifetime. The other fascinating thing about Morgan is, even though he is pretty inebriated, was you wouldn't guess it by seeing him in the ring. His work was still flawless.
He was amazing.
He was an amazing worker. And from what I understood, he mellowed out on the coke later. I don't know if that's true to stay true, but the times I met him on indie shows in the 90s, he was very mellow.
Oh, was he really good? Nice and
very nice guy.
Oh.
Yeah, very friendly.
We've noticed that with a lot of the older Mexicans. Remember how Superboy would say that, what a dick some of these guys were, and then all of a sudden they're really nice guys now.
Yeah, it's true. Well, remember Blue Panther? Yeah. Remember what a nice guy that guy was?
Yeah.
Who else? I remember Pierrot was on a really small Pomona show. Both he and Atlantis were super nice guys.
Yeah, I've heard Pierrot was really nice. Was a good guy, though.
Yeah, very friendly. Didn't know me from Adam, but was still really friendly to me. In fact, in Atlantis, I've never heard anybody say a cross word about that guy. I've heard he's supposed to be one of the friendliest of the luchadores.
Did you see Black Gordman wrestle in the on the Win taping?
Yes, I did.
What did he look like back then? He was pretty bad, wasn't he, by that point?
Well, but he was really old.
Yeah, I know, because I remember I was watching Win, and all of a sudden he showed up on Juarez TV, and they were doing that, that shtick that they would do where they weren't from Mexico, they were from New Mexico.
Oh, that was their famous shtick for Gordon and Goliath. That was their shtick for years. It was.
Yeah, and but the thing is, Ari Romero had been doing it already in Juarez, and I was like, man, dude, everybody must be from New Mexico. It must be like a really nice place to go.
Yeah, exactly. There was nothing like hearing Jimmy Lennon introduce Gordon and Goliath from New Mexico. No matter how many years he did it, it still got heat. And what got even more heat is when people would be screaming at something at Goliath, and Goliath would just look at them with this contemptuous look and say in this very broken English, "Shut up, Mexican."
I just remember going to New Mexico one year and being like so disappointed. I was like, there's no difference between El Paso and all these other and all the the border towns in Mexico to New Mexico. Really nothing different. Maybe the crime rate's a little.
Yeah, well, there's also some very mellow artisan towns in New Mexico
too. It's actually nice. It's a nice it's a nice place if you want to live in the desert, you know.
Yeah, this is true.
Which there's a lot of people who love that sort of thing.
Yeah, for me, the desert is a little too close to nature.
It's too hot over there.
Yeah, I like a nice city where there's air conditioning in the summertime and heat in the winter.
You know, the other guy I was going to ask you, Ari Romero, because I remember when we were talking about him a long time, like a couple of years ago, and you were talking about when you first saw him was back in, I think he was was an opening card guy in the Olympic, wasn't he?
The LaBelle promotion, yeah, he had a full head of hair, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a babyface, and I saw him work several times with the Twin Devils, Los Gemelos Diablo, which were great matches, some great spots. In fact, we were talking about, recently about Ryoma Go, who passed away a few weeks ago. I saw Go and Ari Romero wrestle the Twin Devils, and it was supposed to be, a lot of times in the LaBelle promotion after the main event, they'd have a blow-off match, kind of like a reverse preliminary match.
Uh-huh.
And their tag match actually stole the show. Everybody knew the Twin Devils were going to go over. They knew Romero would job. But they did some beautiful high spots. I don't think he had any really outstanding matches that aired on TV. Unfortunately, when Romero worked TV, that was when the bookers were obsessed with having every match be like almost 20 minutes long. And
you're just like, when does this end?
Yeah, exactly. But he was a good worker, and then the next time I saw him was about maybe 4 years later on a Tijuana card.
Uh-huh. He was fat.
And, totally different Ari Romero. That's when he had the beard and the bald head.
Yeah.
And then Conan introduced us to him at the Win tapings. He was a great guy. He was funny. Very friendly guy, too. One of those guys who you'll talk to him for about 15 minutes and he'll make you feel like you're his best friend.
A Lance Russell type of thing.
Exactly, a Lance Russell type of thing. He's one of those guys that if he was that good, conversation-wise back in the LaBelle days, they were fools not to put him on the microphone because he's a natural talker.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the one thing that I think that's the one thing that I never understood, like, with Win. They should have just kept him on the show as an announcer and, still had him wrestle, but I think it would have helped that show a little more.
He would have been great. In fact, I thought two of the most charismatic guys in the Win tapings were Ari Romero and Crazy 33.
Yeah, the one from Juarez, right?
Yes, who also wrestled during the same era as Rocky Star.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I was shocked that he was Rocky Star.
I was too.
He worked both gimmicks at the same time.
Yeah.
He worked both gimmicks, and it would basically, I remember he would wrestle as Crazy 33 he was like the Eddie Guerrero's big rival for a while. Then all of a sudden, Rocky Star would show up. Rocky Star would get hurt, Crazy 33 would come back.
That's funny. That's sort of what Gordon Nelson did in Los Angeles. He came in as Gordon Nelson, left the territory, and the next thing you knew, Mr. Wrestling had arrived.
Wow. But, the whole thing was, I guess when he would be injured, he would wrestle as Rocky Star in Mexico City, and he was still Crazy 33 in Juarez. So that's what I always...
Yeah.
I always dug that guy.
I actually had some exposure to Win up here. I didn't get the TV show, but I got exposed to it the way I did to a lot of wrestling through the Savoldi ICW shows, because, they'd air all sorts of weird stuff and old stuff, and around, late 89, early 90, they had this international tag team tournament, and they showed Win matches as a couple of them. Claiming
interesting. I didn't know that they aired on other...
This was probably the only one, and you have to remember with Savoldi, there was no rhyme or reason to the TV as far as what would air. One week, all of a sudden, they'd show Bill Watts UWF, a whole show.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, and they would show these couple Win matches, one with the Guerreros, and you had Tony Rumble and Bob Dow doing the voiceovers, and Bob Dow keeps mispronouncing Guerrero 1,000 different ways, so Tony Rumble correct.
I love that.
Guerrero,
Isn't it amazing how bad they are at pronouncing Guerrero? Like, it's like the one name that's always screwed up.
And it's such a simple name to remember. It's 3 fucking syllables. Guerrero. I mean, my God.
Or Mil Mascaras. How hard is it to say Mil Mascaras? You know?
Or even better, of all people, Gordon Solie did the Don Caras.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
And remember on that weekly show, every Japanese wrestler was Tatsumi Fujinami?
I remember looking up Don Caras. I was like, who's this Don Caras? I would look him up.
A character from The Godfather.
Yeah, because I didn't have the video at the time, and I was like, who the hell's Don Caras? I want to know, because it looked like a good video, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, it might be Dos Caras. So I finally got the video, and I was like, oh, it's Dos Caras. Why the fuck does he call him Don Caras? I was like,
yeah, what I remember best on the weekly show that he did, the magazine show, was here's Tatsumi Fujinami in action, and one week it would be Takada.
Yeah.
And usually the opponent for whoever the Japanese wrestler who happened to be Tatsumi Fujinami that particular week was always Shiro Koshinaku, who wrestled in those white sweats.
Yeah.
And so Gordon Solie would always call him the White Panther.
Oh, God.
I was waiting for the day when they aired a match from Japan where both of the wrestlers had black hair and black trunks to see if he said, and tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Tatsumi Fujinami will wrestle himself.
You know, the funny thing, I remember I used to complain about this all the time when I would hear about, you know, like you're watching wrestling, they couldn't pronounce a Japanese guy's name or somebody from Mexico, and then you watch Lucha Libre and they can't do the same thing. It's like they won't do the same thing for the Japanese or the American guys either. It's like, okay, it's pretty much...
It's kind of it's a universal theme in wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they do it in Japan, but...
Oh, in Japan, it's funny because I remember when I started reading the sheets in the late 70s and early 80s, everybody was telling me how professional the Japanese media was and how serious they are in reporting their, wrestling. And then I think it was 1990... went to a TJ show, and Meltzer was with us, and the photographer, Jimmy Suzuki, was there. And after the matches, Dave goes up to Jimmy and says, hey, Jimmy, here, I wrote down all the results if you want to print them. And Jimmy says, oh, no, not necessary. I make up.
He didn't even take it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he didn't even take it. He wasn't even interested. And then I remember when I went with Dave to Japan in 1990, as Fumi Saito was telling us about the Japanese press, how, they would, get the results of the matches before they actually took place. And there were a lot of these esteemed wrestling journalists who didn't even go to the matches. They weren't interested in the only wrestlers they would praise were the old wrestlers that they had seen for years, like Inoki and, just the old hands that had been around, Thunder Sugawara and all them.
Yeah.
And the younger guys they didn't really have that much interest in. So that's kind of a universal theme, I suspect.
Yeah, even the thing about liking the older wrestlers as opposed to the younger wrestlers.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like there was that same school that said, oh, all these young guys, jumping about, I didn't hear that one specifically, but I have no doubt that probably was one of the complaints by the older generation.
They were like Matt Brock, only not fictional.
Exactly. In fact, I didn't look around to see if they wore a visor over their head to cover their faces, like Matt Brock.
What can you tell us about the Ku Klux Klan 1 and 2?
The Ku Klux Klan were cheap heat.
Yeah.
They did that gimmick for a number of years, and they were, at the very best, mediocre wrestlers.
It wasn't the Chivos, right?
No, this was not the Chivos wrestled under the name Los Migra.
Yeah, but didn't they wrestle as Ku Klux Klan recently, wasn't it?
Did they?
I think they did.
The Chivos?
Yeah, recently.
I did not know that. No, the Ku Klux Klan that were in Wynn were some guys who had been doing the gimmick since, I believe, 1983 or 1984.
Yeah. You know one of them is, what was Kayam's first name originally? Legionario, wasn't it?
Khayyam's first name?
Yeah, what was his first gimmick?
No, he was always Khayyam.
Khayyam? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was Khayyam. I even have a picture of him at Hadco Plaza when he was probably like 19 years old and skinny as a rail.
Okay. So I had that one confused with
Yeah. Khayyam usually did the Khayyam gimmick. I believe he did the Migra thing for a while. I believe it was both he and his brother. I want to say it was both of them. But the guys who were the KKK were just two mediocre wrestlers. I actually worked out with them sometimes at Gills. Nice guys. One of them was a little strange in that he had 3 gold teeth that had the initials KKK engraved in them. So here's a very Mexican-looking guy walking around with KKK as his front gold teeth.
Oh, God.
But it was just a cheap heat gimmick.
You know the best thing about it, like, because I don't know if they did interviews for Win, but they did them in I know they did them in Juarez with
in Juarez. I think that was some different KKKs.
Yeah, well, the ones over there, they did one of them. I think one of them did the same gimmick. I don't know. There's so many of them that they kept switching back and forth. But when they did the interview, they didn't even talk. Like, they just spoke in Spanish, basically, without even attempting to make it.
That's funny. That's even funnier.
Yeah, I don't know if the Win. I don't think the Win. Did the Win guys ever do that? I can't remember if they ever.
I can't remember them doing anything that outlandish. I mean, the mercenaries were all,
white guys.
All these white boys, with the exception of Ricky Ataki, and so they were able to do these boisterous, interviews. I'm trying to. I know Dave Sheldon at times was one of the mercenaries. I can't remember if he ever did that gimmick and Win, but I remember it was usually Ricky Ataki and Louis Spicoli teaming up with Billy Anderson. The funniest incident involving the mercenaries was they were in a 6-man tag, and their manager was Handsome Harry Hell, who was a nice guy, but one of the worst wrestlers I've ever locked horns with. That guy was a terrible wrestler, and I was a little kind of wondering, why are they using this guy as a manager? But anyway, he was the manager of the mercenaries, and the finish was to involve him, doing the old, grabbing the baby face's foot as they're coming off the rope to do a high spot and costing the match. But they had to ad-lib the finish because when Harry went, to do the spot, a wrestling fan dressed as Freddy Krueger, wearing not just the mask, but wearing those big Freddy Krueger hands, the big Freddy Krueger gloves.
Now wait, this was not the Win Freddy Krueger?
No, this was a fan.
No, Win didn't have Freddy Krueger. The Freddy Krueger was.
WWA.
Yeah, just WWA and TJ, I think.
Okay.
Yes, this was a fan out of the audience dressed as Freddy Krueger, jumped on Harry and held him back. And meanwhile, a woman from the audience ran up and she had like a plastic bottle of Arrowhead water or something and starts beating Harry over the head with it.
So they tag teamed Harry.
Yeah, and so the mercenaries had to just ad-lib a finish, and you see Harry screaming, "Get the hell off me! Get the hell off me!"
And then so much heat just for that.
Well, the funny part is the lady who was hitting him was laughing her ass off as she was doing it, and the guy dressed as Freddy Krueger, I have no idea what his motive was, but he couldn't have been too angry if he's dressed as Freddy Krueger and jumping on this guy.
Was it Tommy Gilbert?
What?
Was it Tommy Gilbert?
It could have been.
That would have been the money shot if it was. But after the match, I was expecting to see both fans ejected from the arena. But after the match, Red Bastien walks up to him and gives them a lecture on how they cannot touch the wrestlers. And the whole time you see Red Bastien talking, you see him, like, trying not to break out into a smile.
Well, you gotta tell the Red Bastien story.
About how his payoff?
The payoff.
Oh, God.
We covered this on my podcast, didn't we?
Yes, we did. We did talk about that. And to me, the story never gets old. I knew several different wrestlers who said they're waiting for their payoffs, and they're waiting, and then Red Bastien comes up with them. And, usually wrestlers get paid cash on indie shows. Well, Red presents them all with checks, and so the first thing they're thinking is, oh, great, we're getting paid with a check. Bet this will be any good. But then they look down at the check, and all the checks are made out to the wrestlers' gimmick names. So there's a check made out to Superboy, a check made out to Capitan Oro, a check made out to Mr. Pepto. And of course, the first thing they all do in unison is there's no bank that's going to cash a check to Superboy, unless we were employed with DC Comics, maybe. And so Red's hemming and hawing, and he's resisting, but he writes them checks under their real names. Well, you know how that turned out. He might as well just give them the checks under their gimmick names because they were just as worthless.
Oh, they were? They bounced, by the way?
They bounced. I knew somebody else who...
because I know Superboy didn't bring that up towards you. He just said it. He just told us the first part.
Yeah. I knew several other people who were working in a non-wrestling role who said that they were all paid with checks and that they bounced.
So we got another caller on the line who waited 2 minutes before the show was supposed to.
Oh! So now I have to start. I'm going to be pacing the floors now.
He waited 2 minutes before the show would end.
I know the sound. I know the sound of that crackle in the air. That means that Steve Sims is on the phone.
I wanted to give you as much time as possible to get ready for the ultimate challenge that's about to come.
I knew it was you because I know you don't have your iPhone yet because I hear the crackle, crackle, crackle of snow over the wire.
I'm glad to know that's not my phone.
It always echoes.
It always echoes when she's on the line, too.
We could write a theme song.
9 minutes.
What's that?
It could be just because I'm 9 minutes from the Mexico border, too.
That's a possibility, too. We should write a theme song for you, and it should start off with that crackle, crackle, crackle. That would be bitchin'. That would be so boss.
I have been told that there are all sorts of microwaves and border patrol paraphernalia or whatever that send signals through the air because I'm literally so close to the border. So who knows what's interfering? Or it could be just that the federal government is listening into my conversations.
That's right. Well, I do have it on good authority that many different organizations, ever since you were since you worked for that one outfit, the Voters Revolt, they've had their eye on you.
I don't blame them. It's obviously nothing else going on in the world. It's nobody else out there committing crimes.
That's right. The world is such a beautiful place. It's such a mellow place.
It is. And as Alfredo knows, the Lakers are 3-1 and headed back to the championship game.
Yeah, 3-1, 4-1.
4-1? Are they 4-1?
Yeah, 4-1.
Oh, well, sorry. So, hey, they're even better. They're even better.
They're even better now.
That's what I love about Phil Jackson is perfect for the Lakers. You have a Zen Buddhist as the coach for the Southern California team who gets his hair done by a Zen stylist. Can you think of a better heel team to go on the road? It is sweet.
Too.
What's that?
They're great heels, too.
They are great heels.
Everybody hates Kobe.
I thought the Celtics were the heels.
Well, they are. They're great. They're probably...
the Yankees are the heels.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we should write various members of the Lakers team and ask them after they make a good slam dunk if they'll start slapping their chest like the Rudos in Lucha Libre. Wouldn't that be a great sell?
And they could do the Guerrero still Infierno dance.
That's right, yes. Oh, that would be sweet.
Steve, Odessa.
Anyway, young Kurt, your time has come.
Okay, I'm getting ready. I'm poised. I'm sitting down. I think I can take the news. What is the challenge?
That's odd. I was doing some research on wind tapes, and I found here's somebody that found a whole full box of wind tapes in storage in his garage.
Whoa.
Ooh. I don't suppose Kurt would be interested in that, though.
A whole plethora of wind tapes.
Wind tapes. Oh, I know what happened. It's turned 8 o'clock, and now Blog Talk Radio switching to some other program, I noticed that nasty sound coming out of my computer.
Oh, okay. Is your computer turned down?
It's turned up because, yes, it's going to be that kind of a challenge. I looked over the past few months' worth of posts at standembryo.com, a fine website, I might add.
Why, thank you.
Only the best writers post comments there, too.
This is very true, I must say.
And I was thinking, what could I challenge to Kurt? I obviously can't out-wrestle him. I don't have the experience. And I can't out-pretty him because I don't have the pretty. And I can't out-youth him because I don't have the youth.
Well, I'm with you on that one now. Years have passed. I'm 47.
I'm 51, so you still got me.
We're neck and neck, dude.
I don't think that's how it works.
So I think, where could I hit Kurt the most that it would hurt? And I figured probably the best thing to do is to take his beloved playlist that he has, tear it to pieces, and replace it with something so horrible, so terrible, he could probably never survive. So my challenge, and it will take a year to set up, is going to be iPod contra iPod.
Oh, okay, an iPod showdown. It's going to be a playoff, the duel of the DJs.
And I have started by picking out the worst possible old country death music song to load as my first song in the background.
Not country western, no.
That's like a big no-no for us Los Angelinos. Come on.
That's right.
I have been asking around, and people have suggested such things as Achy Breaky Heart.
No.
Oh,
Ouch.
The Macarena.
We're going to lose our caller, our listener.
Anything by Milli Vanilli and Vanilla Ice.
Ouch.
Some really, really old, boring 80s music song like Wind Beneath My Wings. I have to keep it in 80s, 70s, and 80s because I figure that's where it's going to hit you the worst.
Well, wait, okay, I'm scrambling. I'm trying to see if I have any part of my computer plugged into my psyche because you know something about me that not everybody knows. You know my fear.
I'm hitting you below the belt like a Rudo should.
My biggest fear is that when I die, there's going to be a funeral, and they're either going to play Wind Beneath My Wings, that goddamn love theme from Titanic, or that
Your Heart Will Go On Forever.
Or yes, or that dumbass Josh Groban song that you made me climb the highest mountain.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Bryan Adams, everything you do, I do it for you.
Bryan Adams would be like the MC5 in comparison to people like Josh Groban and oh man, you know where to hit me.
What about James
So
Bond?
there's going to be some sad songs as you're walking around south of the Fullerton Arboretum, gathering not only some good exercise vibes, but also all that smoggy and choky atmosphere off the 57 freeway. You'll be ripping your head off because of all the country music pouring out of your two ears.
Yeah, the country. No, I can take the country like the classics, like Vernon Dalhart, or Hank.
Oh no,
Williams.
These are cry in your beer obscure songs.
Oh, ouch. Oh, cry in your obscure songs that they say they're country, but they're country rock. Oh my God, what are they doing? I mean, I'm not even a big country fan, and it's a shame what they're doing to country music.
We might even throw Tom Jones in there singing country.
Oh no!
Whoa! That would be interesting.
That sounds awesome.
How about William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy?
There you go. Okay, William Shatner. I think we've all heard him sing Rocket Man.
Have you heard that album that he did that Ben Folds produced? That was actually really good.
Oh, I did not.
That was really good. He did a cover of Common People by Pulp.
Interesting. Oh, here's one I must ask all of you. Did you see did I only put this on Facebook or did I put this on Stan the Embryo? Did you see that amazing clip from the Lawrence Welk show?
Must be on Facebook because I didn't see it on Stan.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have to put it on standembryo.com if it's not there because this is amazing. It's Lawrence Welk show circa early 70s. A singer named Dick Dale, not the surf guitar king, just some funky country-looking guy. And I can't remember the woman's name, but she kind of had, a more reserved hee-haw look to her. They sang a spiritual. Do you know what the name of the spiritual they sang was?
I do not.
What's that?
I don't. I don't.
One toke over the line. I kid you not. I played it twice to make sure it just wasn't some rib. No, they sang one toke over the line. It was beautiful. Easily the best thing.
That will be far, far better than anything I put on this. But what we need, Alfredo, is we need the contest. Now we have the challenge, but we don't have the contest.
Yeah,
since it can't be a wrestling match, I figured maybe Alfredo could think along the lines of developing a game show where after that beautiful dinner at the Guerrero's on Golden Springs Road, as we retire to...
I propose that the beautiful dinner be the aftermath of some sort of event.
If it's the aftermath, though, then we will have no choice but to trash, to completely destroy the Guerreros.
I say we try to arrange a wrestling show where Physico Nuclear represents Dr. Lucha Steve Sims.
Well, I don't know if he would do that. He still may be angry for holding on to my stuff for 9 months in 1993.
Oh, I'll never forget that. Calling up Physico and saying, "Hey, Physico, have you heard from Steve Sims?" And just like in a movie or a TV show, he says, "Well, as a matter of fact, he's right here."
It was perfect timing.
It was perfect timing. I think I should dig Physico out of retirement, get him out of that hectic teaching job he has, and get him in the ring. And we should a match between Vandal Drummond and Physico Nuclear, which hasn't been done in I don't know how many years. I know Physico Nuclear wrestled some fruitcake named Lucky Pierre recently, but
that's no challenge for Physico's awesome talent.
That's right, exactly. Not at all. It could be playlist versus playlist, and I like the game show aspect too, though.
See, if it gets to a draw, then we could do like the final round of Jeopardy questions with a trivia question that only Alfredo thinks both of us might not know, and we can see who can get it.
Fredo is acquiring a pretty good mass of music that even I had not heard of. Hearing about the third Bardo the other week, I'm 5 times ahead of my time, is the most bitchin' song I've heard all year.
I have to do that to distract myself from all this work and all this wrestling talk and
Oh my God. No, I just had a horrible image into my head because I'm hearing Kurt Brown game shows, and then suddenly, right before my eyes, I see Chris DeVisa dressed as Bull Nakano. Only us and Bob Barnett will get that reference.
I remember that very well, speaking of game shows, yes.
What was the deal with that? You've told me this before on the ill-fated That Motherfucker Didn't Record show, but what was the story with that? Oh,
that's right, yes. What it was there was a game show in Japan that was very popular in the 90s called Naruhodo the World. And the concept of each show was there were a bunch of panelists in Japan, game show panelists, and there would be film footage or video footage of the host of the show going someplace on the globe and covering somebody's occupation or hobby. But a lot of the they'd give you a hint of what the career or hobby was, but the key items would be pixeled out of the video image, so you couldn't see exactly what they're doing. So you see me working out in the gym, or not working out, working out in my home gym, and you see me looking at, showing the cameraman my wrestling masks, but all the wrestling masks are pixeled out. So they have to guess what my, hobby and my interest is. And
we lost
the other two people whose houses they went to cover that was Chris Avisa and Bob Barnett.
Kurt, we lost Dr. Lucha. I just wanted to break it to you guys.
Oh, dear. Is he running away from me now?
No,
well, I noticed the call sounded a lot clearer.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it just like I looked up and his number's gone. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
So the challenge has been made. And suddenly Dr. Lucha is going back to his laboratory and trying to work up some fiendish formula in the Rock and Roll Trivia Handbook.
Yeah, I don't know. He just disappeared. I guess his phone must have got...
I want to know what this horrific playlist is he's coming up with.
I did not hang up on him. Whatever.
And I want to do what I can do to outdo that horrible playlist. I bet I can find more horrible songs. No, not horrible songs, more creative songs.
I just want to mention I did not hang up on Dr. Lucha.
So, Alfredo, you are not playing the role of the heel referee then. We just lost him.
No, we just lost him.
Okay, we lost Dr. Lucha. He might fade back into the scene before we sign off. We'll see, but the challenge has been made.
I'm thinking Blog Talk Radio doesn't like his phone either.
That's it. That's it. His phone is an evil incendiary device.
I hope he doesn't...
Where was I now? What was I just talking about?
Naruhodo of the world.
Oh, yeah, Naruhodo of the world. Well, the whole way we got this gig is, I don't know who got my number, but some Japanese gentleman says, yes, I'm looking for Kurt Brown. And I'm just going, yeah, and he says, we want you to take part in a quiz show about Japanese wrestling. And I sat there like, yeah, is that a paying gig? And he said yes, and I'm going, well, then I'm interested. And so he said, but I want to know if you know much about the wrestling. And I'm going, yeah. So he said, well, I want to ask you sample questions. And it's like, who's the NWA champion, stuff like that. And then he said, which Japanese women has most recently appeared nude in a magazine? And I said to him, Aja Kong? And he didn't laugh, so I knew that he knew less about wrestling than he was letting on. But anyway, yeah, we got the gig to do it, and to be honest, we just had the ring set up at the All Nation Center in Boyle Heights, and, Barnett showed up there, Chris Avisa, we even got Physical. I think Physical made $200 to show up and give me an ocean cycle and suplex. He said it was the easiest money he ever made wrestling.
Yeah, he probably made the $200 he made there was what he made in a year. And
oh, definitely. I think did he ever get a payoff as good as that? I think our Hair versus Match, he got a pretty decent payoff. And the Incredibly Strange Wrestling, sometimes we got some really sweet payoffs on those.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we just kind of showed up and just played the game with them. There's one day where all the cameramen came out to our individual homes and, filmed our houses and our wrestling collection, and then they had us go out to All Nation Center and, get in the ring and run around and act silly and, fall all over each other and stuff like that. I remember Chris DeVisa kicked our ass in the quiz, though.
But why did he end up dressing like Bull Nakano?
You would have to ask him that. I don't know if that was their idea or if he has some... Oh, dear, maybe he knows that I dug Bull Nakano and he was hoping I'd want to, put the moves on him.
Well, I was going to say, were you strangely attracted to Chris DeVisa on that day?
There was some weird magnetic pull going on over there. I don't know what it was, but, the Japanese comedian that they had me paired up with was kind of cute in that leather, and I convinced her to smack me with her kendo stick a few times.
Now, by the way, probably tomorrow night, but if not then, at some point over the weekend, I will be recording a podcast with Ross Hart.
That should be an interesting one.
And I was wondering, do you have any questions about maybe Frank Butcher or Mach Hayato or any of the Lucha-related wrestlers who have come through Stampede?
Well...
by the way, I love that Frank Butcher somehow settled in Calgary.
That really fascinated me. Well, you know what other great figure from, my world of wrestling fascination originated from Canada?
Who?
Senor William Boo.
Really?
Yes, he was a native Canadian. I don't know how young he was when he went to Argentina, but that was his place of birth. A question to ask Ross Hart. I guess just ask if he's familiar with somebody like Frank Butcher. You never know how familiar or unfamiliar people are with, the luchadores.
Well, and his brain is purported to be an encyclopedia about Stampede. So Frank Butcher trained guys in the dungeon for a while. He trained Rick Martel.
Well, then just ask him in great detail, because I don't know much about Frank Butcher, to be honest with you. I would love to learn more about him.
Yeah, and and again, when I asked him, though, what is it that, so many different guys of different styles ended up in Stampede that you wouldn't expect, and, why was it that him and his dad kept better relations with the British promotions, which I always found interesting. That aside from a handful, you never saw a lot of British guys in the other promotions, but Stampede had a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's one of the interesting things is Stampede seemed open to using somebody as long as they were tough as nails. Because if I recall correctly, what I read about Stu Hart when Dynamite Kid came in, is Stu Hart thought it was a joke, but as soon as he saw, what a badass he was enamored with him, where other promoters would not have opened up like Stu Hart did. Dynamite Kid could have torn apart a whole dressing room in a territory like Mid-South, and they would have never given him the time of day. There was that old myth that you had to be big to get over, which is, the biggest steaming load of bullshit that was probably created by very big people.
I bet Jerry Jarrett would have pushed the hell out of him.
Yeah,
actually, that's the exception. Memphis is one of the most unique wrestling territories in history. And I think, David, you and I have talked about this. It was like the closest thing America had to Argentina wrestling. Except they never had a Frankenstein monster like the LaBelles did.
Yes, they did, actually, I think.
They had a Frankenstein monster?
They had monsters, I know that.
I think I have a tape of
that is so cool. I never knew about that.
Yeah, I have a tape of it. I think it might be on the Lawler Early Years tape or something, and it might even be on YouTube. But yeah,
I heard about them having Batman come to the show once.
Well, that was actually Adam West, and I do have that on YouTube.
So that is on YouTube?
Yes, it's a several sheets to the wind Adam West coming out, as Batman, and to confront Super King. And,
I love Memphis wrestling.
He gets very angry that Lawler does not use his turn signals in his car, and that makes him very evil. When I first heard about that was when a fellow by the name of Norman the Weasel Dooley, who used to be best friends with Jim Cornette. Yes.
I don't know, maybe they still are really close friends, but before, many people had VCRs, a lot of fans would just trade audio cassette tapes of, the wrestling shows, of the interviews and such. And I corresponded with somebody saying, I got the trippiest tape from Norman Dooley. And I'm going, yeah, what is it? And they just paused and just said, Batman was on the show. And I'm going, oh, they have a wrestler called Batman? And he's saying, no, I swear to God, this was Batman. This was the real Adam West. And this was like in the early 80s, so I'm just sitting there saying, no way. No way. I'm so glad to hear it exists on YouTube.
Yeah, weird to hear about old wrestling, and you're talking about how you had to record a TV show with a tape recorder.
I used to do that religiously. I used to just turn on my tape recorder and just put the microphone to the TV set. And
oh yeah, I mean, it's just one of those weird things. Nowadays, kids are like, how come you don't have it in high quality DVD, high definition?
Exactly.
It's like, geez, relax, dude. It's just recent.
I mean, God bless whoever the people are who, were bright enough to put their microphones in front of KCOP 13 to get what, few interviews of Tolos Blasted there are, which people who listened to the show several weeks ago remember Dixie Demon here talking about getting footage of the famous Moncel's powder angle, and from what I got in your email, unfortunately, it wasn't quite what it appeared to be.
No, unfortunately, I guess when making up the match list, Vern didn't know as much about the angle to realize what it was, and it was actually a match, I believe, from the Olympic, where Tolis threw powder in Blassie's eyes.
So it was just kind of like a foreign object of the night, not the famous angle that took place in the KCOP studios.
No, unfortunately, no. There is some KCOP stuff later on the tape, and there is some good stuff on the film, from the different films, from what I could see, including what I think was a Victor Rivera versus John Tolis match in the Blasty cage. But, and, Tolis, Blasty
cool
stuff. Lots of Tolis, Blasty, Tolis, Rivera stuff, Ernie Ladd. So, looks like good stuff, though, still.
That's cool. I'm glad, even though I'm sure it's all just Super 8 footage, I'm glad something exists. There's some evidence of that great period of wrestling.
Yeah, we're just glad there's something around,
Exactly.
With everybody recording over all their film and
something to reminisce on.
Well, that's the good thing about film, though, was that you can't record over it.
Well,
exactly.
What exactly were they doing with it, anyways? I mean, that's what I never understood.
You mean the videotape?
Yeah, the videotape. They were whatever they were filming their shows.
They just tape over it.
Yeah, because it was expensive. It was expensive for that film.
Oh.
In fact, on Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez's show today, they had Jerry Seltzer.
I know. I didn't. I skipped it. I was like,
it's an excellent. Even if you're not into roller derby, it's an excellent show.
Kurt, when I saw that, I was like, I'm skipping this.
Oh man.
I got to hear about that all day with the California wrestling crowd.
That's true. Well, in fact, we must say that this Saturday, Fredo and I are heading to the Fairplex in Pomona to see the world champion Los Angeles Thunderbirds in action. With Bix Broadway Danny Wolf calling the action.
Bix probably knows what I'm talking about when I'm saying that we don't understand the whole reasoning behind the roller derby.
I get it. It's a work, and there's not a lot of sports that are entertainment sports. I mean, there's wrestling, there's roller derby, and Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, there's other stuff that was fixed, but I get it. And actually, though, that reminds me that my sister, like several months back, went to a roller derby event here in New York because a friend of hers is kind of the Danny Wolf for the New York team doing the announcing, and she told me that this shoot roller derby is absolutely terrible.
Oh, I've heard that every time, and I heard they differ. I heard some of the organizations are shoots and others are works.
Yeah, and but I don't get, what are these people coming to see if they're just skating around the tracks over and over without doing
I think they're coming to see their friends.
But they draw really well.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I think the best thing is figure out pick their brains, try to ask them, what is it you like?
The one in the Fairplex does pretty good. Like, I mean, it's not a huge crowd, but it's more than there is at a wrestling show.
It is. Well, that's what, and you and I have talked about this, Fredo. What is shocking is they do almost zero publicity for it, but they still manage to draw a little bit of an audience.
Yeah, I mean, think what they would do if they at least actually updated their website.
Exactly. You know what? I Googled to try to find info on the game this Saturday. I found nothing.
Yeah.
The only way I knew about it was I called Danny Wolf last week to just say, hey, how's it going? What's happening?
I found their website, I think the first time we went, and I noticed they didn't have any, they have photos, but then they would have photos the older people, and I was like, why don't they have that one girl, the good-looking girl, be the one person that would actually...
Oh, the Honey Sanchez is a granddaughter.
Yeah, the good-looking one.
Oh, she's gorgeous, yeah. Actually, that whole family has great genes.
Yeah, there's only one good-looking girl in the whole
Gee, well,
for those listening, the roller derby we're talking about is not the one that, is based on the movies and all that stuff. It's the older...
This is classic stuff. They do, and they do a good show. They put together the games we saw.
I find their stuff more entertaining than the other one. The one that...
Yeah, well, I remember Roller Jam was a hard one to watch. Roller Jam, what little I saw of that, it reminded me of when there's some physically talented but very green wrestlers who just kind of learned to do high spots but never really learned the basics of how to work a match.
Yeah. It was like the late period WCW power plant of roller derby.
Yeah, exactly, where they're so obviously going through the moves and it just looks so telegraphed. Where I think one of the appeals about roller derby and roller games was, there was something appealing. They looked like these blue-collar men and women who were just skating with sheer guts and just getting into these wild brawls. They weren't doing these fancy high spots and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, not the last version of roller games, though. The one that was on when I was a kid.
Oh, the one where they had the alligator pits and that kind of thing?
Yeah, and the T-Bird twins and...
Right, yeah, no, yeah, it did kind of evolve into something kind of funky.
I loved that, though. And it was the only roller derby video game that exists.
What's that?
Roller games, that version of roller games gave us the only roller derby video game in the world.
Oh, I never knew there even was a video game.
There was an arcade game and an NES game. The NES game has nothing to do with roller derby, just skating, but the arcade game is like a roller derby game.
Oh, that's hysterical.
And you can play it if you download MAME.
I'm surprised nobody's done one recently.
I'm actually surprised, too. It's huge. Well, one of the things that was interesting about hearing the interview with Jerry Seltzer is, one, he was somebody who was running the show, and I was kind of half prepared to hear this guy just kind of patting himself on the back on all the wonderful work he did for the legacy of roller derby, but he's somebody who was able to step out of the box and really analyze what they did right, what they did incorrectly. And I was really impressed that he talked about the roller derby as it exists today as, he flat out said it's not my cup of tea and I'm not into it, but, he didn't sit there and say, oh, it's just a bunch of crap. They don't know what they're doing. It's just, I can't remember how he put it, but he could just kind of said, it's their thing and it's what they're doing. And obviously it's getting over quite a bit. And, power to them. The same thing I say about wrestling. There's a lot of wrestling that I'll kind of pick apart and say why it's not my cup of tea, but if it's has an audience, then it's wrestling.
Oh, by the way, I have an update on something we talked about last week. I was looking up some City Dragon stuff to email you to prepare you for when I send you a copy of it.
Oh, yes.
MC Kung Fu has made another film.
Really?
Just now, almost 15 years later.
Oh, no way.
And he looks 15 years older, and he's using his real name, Stan something, and the film is the very creatively named Kung Fu Assassins. And it looks along the same lines. It has your usual variety of semi-celebrities who are big enough that you'd have heard of them, but small enough that they'd be in something like this, like Jenna Jameson and forget who else, but the type of people who would be
that's not a bad coup for a low-budget pick.
Like, type of people who would be like in Return to Sleepaway Camp or whatever, and stuff like that.
Right, exactly.
But, so, and I even, looking around, I saw, I forget if it was a review of City Dragon or whatever, and someone mentioned the new movie, and MC Kung Fu, it appeared to really be him, posted a reply about how, how people said the trailer looked bad for the new movie, and it was like, well, if you think awesome kung fu action girls are bikini or lame, then blah, 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 blah.
That's entertaining in itself. That's probably even more entertaining than the movie is.
And it also made it really obvious that he Googles himself constantly, because it was, really not long after the thing was posted.
I love it.
Actually, we have the Google alerts nowadays, so in fairness, he may have a Google alert for his name. So
he probably has his own laboratory next to Dr. Lucha's where he's constantly, doing some, Google work saying, okay, who's looking at me? Who's looking at me? Do they know where I live yet? Oh, man, no tour maps to my house.
Now, have you ever seen Sleepaway Camp?
I have never seen Sleepaway Camp.
You've never seen Sleepaway Camp?
I've seen the original House by Sorority Row, which was a very interesting one for the time. But that's one I will have to check. And
you have to watch it immediately, and make sure you do not find out what the ending is before you see it.
Okay, then I'm going to be Netflixing it as soon as we get off the air here.
The original Sleepaway Camp.
The original,
not 2, not 3, not Return to Sleepaway.
Ian, okay. Then that is how it shall be. Now I hate
move it to the top of your queue, though. That's all I say.
Certainly will, and I will be watching it before Thanksgiving, so I can have something to be thankful for. Well, I hate to end it here, but man, it always goes so fast when we're on Slammin Stan. But we're at the hour and a half mark, so
we've got
time to cut it down. And Big C Demon, thank you again. It's always awesome having you on.
Thank you.
And
we apologize once again to Dr. Lucha for the whatever happened.
That's right. But we have good faith that he will be back soon, and we will be able to cement this deal that we have going. Playlists, wrestling, and all.
I have to say, though, we should not apologize to Dr. Lucha for this one slight, because he is partially responsible for unleashing Dave Scherer on the world.
Okay, then I shall have to come up with another stipulation where he will pay and pay and pay and pay. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening to Slammin Stan number 18. I will try to be even more coherent next week. And remember, if you're walking through Southern California and see this bright light streaking across the sky, remember, it is not a shooting star. It is a heavenly handful of Montel powder.
Yes.